You're done mixing your song, and now it's time for you to send your mix out for mastering. So I'm going to show you how to prepare your mix for mastering. Hey, what's going on? Chris here from MIXDOWN Online. Before we jump into today's topic, if you're new here on the channel, subscribe, click that notification bell so you don't miss anything. And for all of you, share and like this video if the video is helpful. And I'm going to share with you some steps that I do on my side every time I prepare my mix for mastering, whether it's for me to master in another session, which I kind of like to do when I'm mastering my own mixes, but usually I'm going to send my mix to a mastering engineer. So let's look at the few steps I'm taking here to prepare my mix for mastering. First, listen to the entire mix from A to Z and pay attention for some clicks and pops, okay, that can occur. That happens. Sometimes if you pay attention, sometimes you're gonna hear some clicks and pops, and you need to fix those before you send your mix to mastering. Now, to fix that up, very simple. If you're using a template like mine, where I have several stereo buses for different types of instruments, it's going to be very easy to identify the clicks or the pops. Usually, they will come from the vocal track. Okay, that is usually the case. I would say 80% of the time, if I'm hearing a click, it is going to be out of the lead vocal track. So if I'm hearing a click or a pop, by using the template, it is very easy for me to identify where the click is coming from. I can just solo. I'm going to start with the vocal. I'm going to solo the vocal bus and just listen to the place where the click was identified and to listen to if I'm still hearing that click. And then I just continue until I'm on the correct bus. And from that point on, I just listen to the individual tracks until I get to the click, and I fix that. So again, listen to the song from A to Z, pay attention to those clicks and pops, make sure the track is clean before you bounce it for mastering. Next, leave some headroom off your master bus. Okay, I'm going to have you listen to the track right now.
J'ai tellement attendu que tu reviennes, que tu reprennes ta place.
At the moment, the mix is way too loud for me to send it to mastering. So what I need to do, I just need to bring it down. But instead of bringing down my master fader, which can work, I'm just going to go a step down. I'm going to go and look at what I have on my stereo bus, which is my bus right here. I'm not using the master bus to insert all of my stereo bus plugins. The only plugins that I have on my master bus are monitoring plugins. Okay, they do not affect the sound. So all of my processing plugins will be on the stereo out bus that I created myself. Now I'm going to look at what I have, and I have a limiter, which brings me to my third point of removing all limiters. Okay, so this is going to help you to bring down your the gain of your master bus, because I want to aim for maybe -8 dB to -6 or peaking at -3 at the max, something in that area, so I can give some headroom to the mastering engineer to be able to work. So I'm going to look at what I have here. I have a FabFilter Pro L, which is my limiter that I have at the end of my chain on my stereo bus. Reason why I do so, I love mixing with a limiter. At least activate the limiter once in a while during the mixing stage, so I can hear what my mix is going to sound after being mastered, because the mastering engineer is going to use limiting. So I just want to kind of emulate what that is going to sound like to make sure that my mix translates well with a limiter at the end. But I'm going to bypass that limiter afterwards. And my second reason why I like to use a limiter is when I'm bouncing a mix for my clients, so they can have a bit more volume when listening to a mix. Or else it's just going to be too low, and it's kind of annoying for the client to listen to a low volume track. So I just add a limiter just to bring up the volume for the clients. But when I'm ready to bounce my mix for mastering, I just bypass the Pro L, and this is what I'm getting. All right, so -8. Okay, so that's good. It could even be a bit higher, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to send that as is. Mastering engineer is going to be happy with that. It gives him a lot of headroom to work with. Now, if without a limiter your mix is still too loud, check the plugins on your stereo bus. Sometimes they will add some volume to your mix. So if you bypass them all and you hear a decrease in volume, that means that some of the plugins on your stereo bus are causing the increase in volume, okay? And that will affect, of course, the gain stage of your master bus. So in this case, what you need to do is just to check which plugin is adding a lot of volume and just lower the output of that plugin so you can gain stage that properly so you have way more headroom in your master bus. Now, this will affect the following plugin, of course. If you reduce the volume of one plugin, the signal coming into the next following plugin will be decreased as well, and that plugin will react differently. But if you do so, take the time to work on your plugin chain on your stereo bus so your mix sounds as good as you want. From that point on, if your mix is still too loud, you can go a step lower and check your instrument buses and then the individual tracks to make sure everything is not peaking. If you gain stage properly from the beginning of your mix, you are going to avoid most of these problems. Now, I'm just going to stay on the stereo bus because I have some other plugins, as you can see. I removed the limiter off my stereo bus, but I also have a bit of EQ, and my mix is going through directly into my crème, which is a stereo bus compressor that maybe adds maybe 2 dB of gain reduction maximum. I could actually bypass those and send that to mastering as well without any EQ, even if it's subtle and compression. But this is a personal choice. If you think that adding EQ on your stereo bus and a bit of compression is part of your sound and it defines your mix, I would say leave it there. Okay, most of the time I will leave it there because I love to craft my mix with those on the stereo bus. Very tiny moves, but it doesn't matter. Everything adds up, and I kind of like the vibe out of it. But for sure, the limiter, I will not send a mix with limiting. And something that is very useful for a mastering engineer to have from you is a reference track, a track that you like the master of, that you can send to the mastering engineer. So at least it gives him an idea on what to look for and what to work on your mix while mastering. And something cool that you can also do if you decide to remove some EQs and compression off your stereo bus, but you still want to let know the mastering engineer what you had in mind. You can actually send two versions. You can send a version to the mastering engineer which has that compression going on and that EQ going on that you kind of like the sound of. So it gives them an idea. You use that as a reference track for the mastering engineer to work with. And then you send the other version without any plugins on your master bus. So this is something you can do also. So it's up to you. But the important thing is to remove the limiter off your master bus. Next, let's go on the project window here. And what I do, I tend to leave some silence at the beginning and the end of my mix. So my mix is not going to start at bar 1. If I receive a mix, I'm going to move the tracks a couple of bars. So I have a bit of silence at the beginning of my project. So this way I can leave some extra bars at the beginning and at the end of my track when I send that out to mastering. So this way it gives a bit more leverage and more room for the mastering to work with. Just in case there's a pop or a click at the beginning of the mix. That can happen when exporting with plugins from a DAW, or if you want the mastering engineer to work the fades, leave some silence at the beginning and the end of your mix. And then when it's time to bounce your mix, bounce with the same sample rate as the project and avoid bouncing in MP3. Use WAV or AIFF. I go with WAV. If my project is in 44.1, I'm going to bounce at 44.1. And I'm going to bounce at 48 or higher sample rates if I mix at a higher sample rate. As far as the bit depth, I'm going to start by keeping it at the same bit depth as the project is on. But you might have a mastering engineer that will ask you to export or bounce your mix at a higher bit rate, let's say 32-bit float, which is pretty common. Okay, so just change that. That doesn't matter, but keep the sample rate the same as the project's sample rate. Okay, so very, very important. And one last thing, you don't need to add any dithering plugins when bouncing for mastering. The mastering engineer is going to take care of that part. So there you go. This is how you prepare your mix for mastering. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. And don't forget to share, to like, and to subscribe to this channel if you're not already. All right, guys, take care, and I'll see you soon.